Welcome to this week's Forge tutorial. This week we'll be making wooden rings out of some scrap wood you have lying around. I'm using an old paint stirrer, but you can use whatever you like. For this week's tutorial, you'll need a little piece of wood that's about 1.5 inches by 1.5 inches square, some clamps, a little backstop backboard, piece of scrap for drilling and making sure that you don't blow out your piece, some tape and some sandpaper, a drill of course. Different bits will work. I'll use a paddle bit, but straight bits will work as well. A pair of scissors, a Dremel tool or similar rotary tool, mine just happens to be a Dremel, a saw of some sort if you're cutting your wood down from a larger piece. I'm using a coping saw, but really any saw should work. And lastly, you'll need some sort of straight edge. I'm going to be using a speed square. First thing we'll do is cut 1.5 inches square off of our paint stick, like so. Using this paint stick is great because it already has a measurement on it, so I didn't even have to measure with the speed square. Now you will use your straight edge for drawing 2 diagonal lines across the face of your square. This finds the middle point roughly so that you know where you're going to be drilling. Now that we have our piece marked for drilling, we're going to take our backstop and a clamp, maybe 2. We're going to clamp it down so that we can easily access it with our drill bit. Here again I'm using a paddle bit, but a straight bit will work. I'm using a 5/8 of an inch paddle bit, but really any size bit should work. Just think about the size finger you're putting the ring on and choose the appropriate size bit. Once you're sure about your bit size, go ahead and drill through the center of that hole. Go slow and steady here because it's really easy to break your piece, as you can see. When using a paddle bit, it's a good idea to go relatively slow with your bit. This is fast forward, so obviously it doesn't look slow. But while doing this, I used a lower setting and pulled the trigger just slightly so the bit wasn't moving at full speed, which eliminated the cracking and the blowout, as you can see here in this nice clean hole through the center of our workpiece. The next thing we're going to do is work on the inner diameter of the ring so that it will fit our finger perfectly before moving on to work on the outer diameter. This step will work best with your rotary tool, but you could do it by hand with sandpaper as well. I'm going to use my rotary tool as a spindle sander essentially, and I have a sanding bit already attached, and I will put that through the 5/8 of an inch hole I just drilled. As you can see, I'm slowly moving it around in a circle, then testing to see if it fits my finger after removing material, removing more material, and then testing again to see if it fits. If you prefer, you could always set your Dremel up like a belt sander for hands-free operation. Just use the same technique of moving in small circles so you remove an equal amount of material from all parts of the inner diameter. And if you're not using a rotary tool, just cut a small strip of sandpaper, fold it over, and use that to sand out the inner diameter. This will take longer, but it is still possible. Even if you are using a rotary tool, you'll probably want to do the final little bit of sanding by hand so that you get that perfect fit. Once we've got that fit, we're ready to move on to the outside. Use your pencil or marking tool to draw your outline of your ring by hand. Then you can clean it up a little bit. You could also use a compass or a scribe here if you like. Now that we have a rough outline, we can remove the edges using our saw, and this will eliminate a lot of sanding time in the next step. Now we'll set our Dremel tool up as a belt sander again, turn it on, and sand around the edges. Be sure to hold your piece pretty firmly because it could go flying out of your hands. We'll keep sanding until we work this down to the outline that we drew before. And again, you can use regular sandpaper to do this step. It will just take you a bit longer. Now that we have the proper inner and outer diameter, we want to make our ring a little less wide. So we're going to take a piece of sandpaper, lay it flat, and then sand away on the flat sides, both sides of the ring. This sanding step really has to be done by hand, so just keep at it until you reach the desired width for your ring. Once you're satisfied with the width, you can move to rounding the edges. You want to do this on the outside and the inside to get rid of the sharp edges and make this ring a little bit more comfortable to wear. And there you have it. We've turned a square piece of wood into a wearable ring. Here are a couple of other examples. This is a ring made out of walnut and then coated with a little polyacrylic. And here's another ring made out of plywood, which actually makes it look like it has an inlay. Now your homemade ring is ready to wear with pride. You could stop here and let your new ring coat itself with the oil from your hands, or you could use a little polyacrylic or tongue oil finish. I'm going to use some tongue oil, just put it on my rag and then wipe it all over the surface of the ring, the outside and the inside and the sides. It's best to wear gloves to protect your hands against these oily finishes, but this was such a quick and small project that I didn't throw them on for this. If you're using tongue oil or another type of oil finish, be sure to come back after about 15 minutes to wipe off any excess finish. You could continue to finish with a couple of extra layers of tongue oil and some fine grit sandpaper, or you could end there. Thanks for watching, have fun, and keep making.